Hello and welcome back to the Oracle on Purpose podcast. I am your host, Leah Dunlap. I'm so excited today. We're here with Jackie de Crinis, and we're going to be talking about amazing things in regards to her transition from corporate careers to her new life and what she's doing with those people who are surviving the corporate world. And I think that's a really great thing for all of you who are following us, who are women founders and entrepreneurs, because really, we all understand that there is just so much put on our shoulders, and oftentimes we put it there ourselves, and we need to find ways to really manage that stress. And so I'm really excited to have Jackie here to talk about her project, what she's up to, why she's doing what she does, and of course, her journey, because we're here to find out about other people and their journeys and how they've actually managed to thrive and build limitless lives of their own. So I'm going to send it over to Jackie now, but I want you guys to stay tuned because, of course, at the end of this, we'll give you the opportunity to learn more about how you can be a guest on our show or continue to watch our show. And of course, stay tuned to the end where the Oracle, of course, will come out to play and share a little time with Jackie as well. So stay tuned. Don't turn away. And Jackie, I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us a little about your story.
Very good. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It is a pleasure we got to get to know each other a little bit last week, and it's just great to be here. My story is like so many other women. I spent the first third of my life, or I should say the first half of my life practically, in corporate America. I was a television executive for over 30 years. I worked for all the major networks and studios. And while it was a very privileged career, it was a very toxic career, as so many of those big industries are, because they're so competitive, because the demand for success is always next. It's what's next, what's next, what's next. In my case, it was what's the next hit show. I know people in pharmaceutical and people in tech and people in media and people in all kinds of industries, it's always what's the next thing. What's the next
right?
great thing?
Yeah.
I'm a mother of now 3 adult children. So I was raising 3 very small children when I was a television executive. I had all the things that other people had, long commutes and juggling, pets and kids and husbands and all the things. And while I was fairly successful at it and fairly successful at keeping my head above water, I felt like I was always drowning.
Oh,
and
gosh, yeah.
And in spite of having such a privileged career and some success in it, I felt like I was surviving my life instead of enjoying it.
Oh, goodness, that right there. Surviving versus enjoying. I think so often there's this story we tell ourselves that when we get to that whatever level of success, then we can relax, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we will have made it. Then we can have all the things that we need, right, to actually thrive. So tell me, for you, what was that moment? Maybe there were several of them, but what's the one you most remember where you recognize that, okay, we need to take a different path. We need to change what we're doing.
There were a lot of them. I mean, there's a famous joke. I'll probably tell it poorly because I'm not a joke teller, but it's about the floods in Iowa. And
yes,
you know the joke,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's raining, it's pouring. The streets are flooding and people are starting to flee. First they walk, then they run, and so this one fellow is like, I don't want to leave my house. So he basically, sandbags in front, that doesn't work, goes to the second story, and a boat comes by and they're like, get in, you're going to drown. And he's like, no, I have 2 stories. I'm good. Bye. Another boat comes in. They're like, I'm the last boat. Like, you're going to drown. And he climbs up on the roof. He goes, no, I'm not leaving my home. This is my home. And the guy's like, okay, I got to go. 2 boats leave. A helicopter comes, a rescue helicopter. They drop a ladder. They're like, climb the ladder, we've got you. And he's literally like on the chimney and the water is coming over the chimney. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving my house. God will send me a sign when I really need to leave. And he dies. He drowns. And he gets up to heaven and he says to, whoever's at the gates, he says, I don't get it. I trusted you. I thought like you would send me a sign when I was really, in trouble. And he goes, 2 boats and a helicopter, and you didn't figure out those are the signs? So that's sort of
I'm
how I
going to
felt
give
for
you
me.
gratis because that was really well done for someone who didn't know the joke as well as she thought she did. I agree. I think that's it, right? That's the story.
So I
Yeah.
had 2 boats and a helicopter over the course
Mhm.
of 30 years and many, many other warning signs. And I think, you know, I tried lots of different things. I kept thinking
Mhm.
I could just, I always refer to myself as I was like the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, where I just kept putting the stuffing back in the scarecrow and hoping that I could keep going down the yellow brick road. And the stuffing was coming out, meaning I was having anxiety and headaches and stomach aches and all the things people have when they're chronically stressed. And it was actually my husband who said, I don't think this is a sustainable model. Like, I just don't think you can keep going at this pace. And so he started what he referred to as crafting the exit strategy, which for him meant like we were going to leave Los Angeles and we were
Mm.
going to, work as hard as we could while we could, save hard. So, in other words, reduce our lifestyle, save hard, move to wherever we wanted to move. But I picked Maui, and that's where I live. But that wasn't the answer either, because I actually telecommuted for a number of years. And
Oh my
so
God.
all I did was move my stress to a small island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I didn't change anything. And it was the
Mm.
second round. I actually went back to Los Angeles, took a bigger job in Hollywood, and then finally retired from television. And that's when I kind of had to take a hard look of, okay, it's not about moving to paradise that saves you. It's not even about leaving your corporate career that saves you. And it's not about saving enough money that saves you. Now, those are all nice things. Live where you want to live. Leave the job that is toxic if it is. And of course, save as much as you can so that you have choices. That's just good advice.
Right.
But when I took my gap year between television and being a life coach, and I spent a year getting to know myself outside of a 70-hour work week, outside of juggling 3 small children, I really sort of was like, oh gosh, I have technically freedom. I have
Mm.
peace. I have my own schedule. I mean, it's really up to me. I didn't work for a whole year of and I had been working since I was 16. And I was like, this is uncomfortable.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't miss TV. Let me be clear. I wasn't like, oh, I jumped the ship too soon or whatever. I was like, who am I? What do I do? And that's when I started doing the work that I now coach on, which is I learned to meditate. I started doing yoga. I started playing sports. I started playing sports earlier. I started having a morning routine. I started eating better. I started being conscious of like how I was holding my breath all day, because that's what you do. You
Mm.
just hold your breath all the time. I started writing. I started writing a blog, and then I hired a coach. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And it was just crystal clear once I started working with a coach that I had all of these disciplines. I had a degree in psychology. I had interest in medicine. I had corporate experience. I was a mother. I had been divorced. I had been remarried. I lived in a small place. I lived in a big city. And I was like, I need to coach. I need to coach other people how to manage their mind and body when they are way over the speed limit and stressed out from either their careers or their home life, or both.
Yeah, or both. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing that you speak to there is this concept that when we are pushing ourselves past all of these limits, we've also blown past all of the warning signs, right?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
right? And it's like we
Totally.
think, like, look, that's why they say hindsight is 2020, because suddenly you look back and you're like, oh yeah, wait, okay, yeah, I did see that boat. Oh yeah, I saw the other boat. Yeah, I saw the helicopter, and I saw, it's like, oh, I did see those things. So I think it's important too that you acknowledge it. So if you're listening to us, it's really, I think, key, because we can also be so hard on ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't I? And I would say that in light of what you're just speaking to too, there was that time in that gap that you had when you got uncomfortable, as you said, because you didn't have all that external stuff going on. It reminds us, and I say this often to my clients, is like, it reminds you of where your core is.
Mm.
And then you don't you don't have the distraction of everything else that's going around you,
Yeah.
then you not only can you hear those things, but part of hearing them is understanding that there's some discomfort in knowing
Yes.
what that is that you're really meant to be doing here, and that you're
Yes.
really best suited for what I like to call your sweet spot, right? That
Yeah.
place where your purpose and your skills and your talents all align. So for you, as you became a coach, and I hear you saying like, oh, then you realize like you had all of this and you decided to become a coach. What do you think as someone who's like shifting gears and really that's a fairly big swing as far as like what you were doing before and what you were doing as a coach.
Yeah.
What were the biggest challenges for you as you stepped into that new role? Like what, I mean, I think we all have them, but I'm just curious for you, what were those, maybe those doubts or those like maybe undertows of concern as you stepped into that new role?
So it's a great question, and it's a multi-layered answer. Um, I could be really glib and be like, this one, this thing, but it was like dozens of things. So the first thing was being afraid to be an entrepreneur, because
Mm,
people forget that coaches are entrepreneurs. I mean, it's starting a business. It may not be a brick and mortar business where you're selling t-shirts or coffee mugs, but it's still a business. You're marketing yourself. That was enormously uncomfortable.
mm,
I had been very used to marketing. I'm not in marketing and never was. I was a developer of television shows. So I worked with the writers and producers and actors. But we had marketing departments. Like
right.
when we developed a show and it went on the air, there was a huge team of like the most phenomenal people,
Yes.
from people who knew how to cut trailers to buy ads to publicity to booking our talent on shows. I didn't do any of that. I didn't have to. I just had to like buy the idea and develop the idea and promote the idea internally, right? To my
Right.
bosses to find the funds to greenlight. So all of a sudden I'm promoting something I don't know how to market, and it's
Mm,
me. And like that was so uncomfortable. So that was the first thing that was hard. The second thing was hard was every time something didn't go well in my business. Like, for example, I never had to do an Excel spreadsheet or QuickBooks, like, business or taxes. I didn't have to start up a S Corp or a C Corp or anything. I had to start everything from the scratch. And when something went awry, like my computer froze or my internet went down, I didn't have an IT department to just call and they rushed to my corner office to help me. I'm the IT department. I'm the
right.
assistant. I'm the marketing person. I'm the publicist, and I'm the coach. So when people are like, oh, are you nervous about coaching? No, coaching is something that's like I've been doing for my whole career, right? Coach writers, coach young people to become executives, coach colleagues. That came natural. It's running a business and then hanging out your own quote shingle. It's a virtual shingle, of course, but
Right.
hanging on a shingle and saying, I'm now a life coach. And then the fear of coming from an industry, which is so judgy. I mean, entertainment is so judgy. And I remember people saying to me, wait, you're kidding. You,
Oh, yeah.
you're a life coach. It was as if I would like became a real estate agent, and nothing wrong with being a real estate agent, but like it's a big pivot from having a prestigious career in entertainment and being like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell houses now, and that's kind of what it was. That was how people responded. And there was a lot of giggling and there was a lot of like, really? That's why you
Mm.
left Hollywood? I'm like, no, I left Hollywood to leave Hollywood. And now I'm reinventing myself. And the interesting thing is, my first dozen clients were all former colleagues.
Mhm, mhm. I think that's interesting to note as well. I think when we make our pivot, I think what I'm hearing too for everybody who's listening is, I like to tell my clients like don't go to the people that are your critics when you make
Mhm,
this change.
mhm,
You're going to be tempted to because
mhm.
part of you internally is going to want to test this theory, and we
Yeah.
take it to the person we think is really going to be the toughest. But if you're really trying to make a shift, it does not serve you, as you're saying, to go to people who you know are going to be the toughest critics. However, conversely, I think it's also true that the people who see you rise from that position that you were in to another position and know that you know their story are
Mhm.
definitely going to be the ones that are enticed to follow your path, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of why I think that makes sense. The people that were like, oh yeah, in our group we call that I want that. I
Yeah.
want that, right? And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. So I think that's really amazing. And I think that you touched on a couple other things that I think it's important to share and focus. Um, this concept that people are going to judge you no matter what.
Yeah.
They're going to judge you whether you do or you don't. They're
Yeah.
going to judge you whether you're good or you're not. And I think so often we think, and I just got to say, I think as in general, I find that most women that I work with and most women I know, no one's harder on them than they are on themselves. They're just not. We just tend to really
Absolutely.
have a really harsh line for ourselves. So I think if we can at least say, as you're listening to this audience, if you think that the reason not to is because someone's going to judge you, that's the last reason you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's not a valid reason not to follow something that you feel aligned with. So what was it about moving into coaching that really lit you up? What was your like, oh, this is going to be it. I'm really excited
It
about
just, for me, it felt like although I don't consider my television background very diversified because I was in it for so long, it's like, well, that was one thing, but it was diversified. But I wanted to grow up and be a doctor. That was what I went to school for. And it was only because I didn't go to medical school that I always was like sheepish about, I ended up in television. And my husband says, I married a girl from a small town who worked at the local factory. And the small town was Los Angeles. The local factory was Hollywood, right? I loved medicine. I loved Eastern and Western medicine. I have a
it.
degree in psychology, so I love psychology. I was always kind of a health nut in terms of diet and nutrition and later in life exercise, and then even later in life meditation. And I was like, wait, I get to marry everything I love,
Yeah.
everything I've studied, everything. By the way, I don't mean just at university level. I mean everything I've read, every self-help book, every psychology book, every nutrition book. And I get to incorporate that into my own practice and
Mm.
serve people on all the disciplines that I love. And so for me, what lit me up was it wasn't wasted. Nothing was wasted. No
Yes.
podcast, no audiobook, no regular book, no 4 years at UCLA, 4 years at university to study psychology or biology, the 30 years in television, none of it was wasted. It all goes into the pot, if you will. And I get to pull from it and share that expertise or at least curiosity with others to help guide them on their path.
Lovely. And that's so amazing to me because that for me is one of the things I let people know, like success leaves clues, but so does your purpose, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those things that were lighting you up, I always say
Mm-hmm.
like look for them because those are the yellow flashing signs saying this is important. This
Yeah.
matters to you. This is
Yeah.
something that really feeds you. And I think when we feed ourselves and we give from an overflowing cup. So what is it now? I know, you have a great vision for this holistic approach is what I'm hearing with your coaching. If I were to wave a magic wand and say like, okay, you've done it, Jackie, you've achieved what that next big vision is for you. What would that look like?
Ooh, that's such a fun question. So I wrote a book last October, which is the same name as my podcast. So my podcast is called The Overthinkers Guide to Joy. And basically just people who are inherent overthinkers, who question everything, who have a big inner critic. And I just map out in my solo casts, at least, little elements of everything I coach on. So that's how it began. And then so many of my listeners would send me notes and they'd say, I wish it was a book. And there was no way to take the podcast to be a book, but I thought, well, I could take elements of it. I could take what I coach on and I could write a handbook. So I wrote the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, a handbook for overachievers, people pleasers, and perfectionists. And I'd say if I had one goal, it would be for that to become a New York Times bestseller.
Oh, love it. I love it. And what is it you think, if you're looking at that vision of it becoming a bestseller, that you feel from here where you are to what that would look like? What is there a way or a space or a question about what to do next around that for you?
There is. It's like, how do I reach that audience? How does something go viral? How do you find Oprah Winfrey to like anoint your book so that you become Glennon Doyle, or you become Brene Brown, or you become, you go from being a writer or a researcher or somebody to reaching the masses.
Yeah,
How do you,
definitely.
because basically I want to help the masses. I don't want to do that in my coaching per se. My coaching is a very boutique, one-on-one, small, and I want to keep it that way. But I would
Yes.
like the book and the podcast to reach the masses.
I love that. So now it's funny because as you're speaking, I'm thinking people are listening to you thinking, well, Jackie, you were in the industry. Like, how would you not know, how to get on Oprah? So I think it's really telling as well that when we are like, even like just O's like popping in here with this idea, like, isn't it interesting and almost, isn't it funny that one of the things that you mentioned as far as like stepping into this new role was this kind of like selling yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That stretch of selling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to that. Like you have lots of connections, clearly, of like
Mm-hmm.
places you have a much shorter, what is it, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Like you have a much shorter list of
Mm-hmm.
jump. And so is it the idea of exact steps, or is it there a sense for you of like, wow, can I get to the place where I am that person, that Glennon Doyle, that Brene Brown? Is it selling that part of yourself that you find maybe most daunting?
It's a great question. I don't know if I have an answer to it. The idea of selling myself too much feels too grandiose, probably, but I like the idea that it comes organically into the hands that it needs to come. I think there is a little bit of I want somebody to find it organically, as opposed to calling some agent in Hollywood and saying, will you get this in front of Oprah?
Aha, aha.
I
And
really
so
want somebody to just open it and say, I love it. And I think this would be great. And, I know Oprah's publicist, or I know her book person, or I don't know,
right,
and it may not
right.
be Oprah. It could be
But
anybody.
but I hear what you're saying. And I think that's the thing that O is pointing to is it's like this piece is probably the piece for you to investigate or play with a little bit, which is like, what if it does take that? What if it took that? If it took
Mm,
you using your connections?
mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when we have that thought of like it being organic, and I see that also with other people that are just trying to build their business, whether that's a book or not, and they just feel
Yes.
like, oh, if somebody else would just come in and, tap me as the next thing, then
Yeah.
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And so at some point it feels very authentic, like, oh, well, of course I want people to really like authentically find and organically find me engaging and enticing and all of these things. And I get the symbol from her, like, yes, and there's a reason you have the connections you have. But there
Mm,
is this piece that she's pointing to, which is there might be some growth for you of like being able to really make that bold statement for yourself that you deserve to be promoted in that way.
mm-hmm.
And once you're maybe even more comfortable with it, you might actually find that organic connection. But
Well,
there
that's
is like
interesting.
something there, like there's a little nugget there that she's showing me of like, oh, isn't that interesting? Because when you started talking, that popped, and then this came up and it popped again, which is for those of you watching, that's what happens for me is like I see things pop on my little holodeck in front of me, like, oh, this is a point to note. This is a point to note. And the fact that they connect makes sense to me, that it was like a signal of like, this is a place for you to stretch into that. So if
Oh, I
the
love that.
oracle was to give you something, it would be this insight of like, it's probably time for you to know that it's okay for you to toot your own horn in that way. And yeah, and maybe that will be making a one of those leaps between you and the infamous Oprah to make it so. And it's worth it.
I love
It's
that. I will
yeah.
take that to heart. I will listen to the oracle as the first boat in the
Yes,
in the
exactly.
flood.
Yes, yes. And I hope that you do. And I hope that as you're investigating that for yourself, that you find your own rhythm with it. That's the beauty of anything that the Oracle delivers us is it's like it is a bit like the boat. It's like here's an opportunity, right? You get to take it or not. I think there'll be other ones that might come along. And usually, as you just said, the other thing that happens is that once we have that nugget, once we have that little glimmer, more often than not, if we're paying attention for it, the other signs, synchronicities start to kind of play along the lines of pointing back to that path, whatever that path is for you.
Well, that's a
So,
great callback to the thing you said at the beginning of this podcast, which is 2020 hindsight, right? Because when
yeah,
I think back at a career, there were those little moments, there were glimmers where you're like, oh, I overheard this, and then I took the initiative to do that. And then all of a sudden it became something. And so I think what you're saying is the same, like pay
yeah,
attention to the glimmer.
yeah, definitely. I just got the full chills for that one. So yes. So I think that's a good spot to leave us because yes, we should all pay attention to the glimmer. We'll throw that out there for all of you, but let's let everybody know how they can pay attention to you, Jackie. How can they find out more about what you're up to when you're writing another book? Is that correct? Am I
Not
mistaken?
yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet. Okay, well, maybe
Yeah.
that's another sideline from O. So keep that one in your back pocket. But tell us how they can get a hold of you, get a hold of your book.
Yep. So everything is on my website. How to get in touch with me as a coach, how to listen to my podcast, how to buy my book, my newsletters, signing up for my newsletter. It's all housed in one area. And that is the website of JackieDeCrinis.com. And I'll spell that. It's JackieDeCrinis.com. And everything is there. And they can email me from there. They can schedule an appointment with me, whatever they like.
Perfect. One-stop shop. Everybody heard that here. For those of you who are rushing to get a pen, don't worry. We will get you the links below this podcast where you'll be able to get right connected straight to Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, so much for being here on the show. I'm so glad we were able to connect today and share this information for people so that they can also be inspired to make their leap, whatever that looks like for them. And
Leah,
yeah, I'm excited to hear what happens with this book. I'm just telling you, I got a feeling about it. So who
love
knows?
it.
Who knows? Maybe O's listening right now and Oprah is also listening and somehow they're connecting the dots behind the scenes. That would be fun too.
I love it. Leah, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your beautiful energy and the oracle speaking through you. I love it so much. I've loved both of our conversations and it was a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. All right, everybody. I am Leah Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose, and this is the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help women entrepreneurs and founders find that illumination, the inspiration, and perhaps even some tips and trips about how to make their lives and their work limitless and full of purpose and prosperity. So if you're listening now and that is intriguing to you, stay tuned for our next guest who will no doubt share even more information for you. So that will be a great thing to follow up with. If you would like, you can subscribe below by clicking the bell, and we will make sure you get all this juicy details for our upcoming shows. And until then, please remember, you are here on purpose.